Hello there. This is your girl, Valerie Mason Chase, and this is another episode of Marriage Beyond the Breach. And today's subject matter, I think it impacts a lot of families, and that's why I felt that it was important to talk about it. It certainly impacts my family. I read recently in the 2020 census, there were approximately 9 million people of mixed race. But that was a 2010 census. There was approximately 9 million. In the 2020 census, that number had jumped from 9 million to 33.8 million. That is an increase of 276% in a matter of 10 years. So the number of biracial and multi-ethnic individuals and children is growing exponentially. And for that reason, I believe that it is a subject that is worth having a conversation about. I was talking to the Cookie Man not long ago, and I said, hey, sis, I think probably in about 50 to 75 years, the number of mixed race people is going to far outweigh other individuals. So, of course, I think it's something that we need to talk about. I remember watching this movie named Bulworth several years ago, and there was a scene in there that I want to play. Now, I'll have to give you a fair warning. I do not know how to bleep out words. So I'm warning you, if you're sensitive to the F-bomb, you may want to cover your ears. Okay, there is one F-bomb in this clip that I'm going to play. I would have bleeped it out, but I just don't know how to bleep it out. So bear with me for 1 minute. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm not high tech enough to have two screens where I can go back from one to the other, but just bear with me for 1 moment. I'm going to pull this up because I think Bulworth said it best in this movie. Okay, hopefully you can see that and hear that. So I'm going to play it.
Rich people have always stayed on top by dividing white people from colored people. White people got more in common with colored people than they do with rich people. We just got to eliminate them. Eliminate.
Who, rich people?
White people. Damn. Black people too. Brown people, yellow people. Get rid of them all. All we need is a voluntary, free-spirited, open-ended program of procreative racial deconstruction. Everybody just got to keep fucking everybody till they're all the same color. I think it's...
So, anywho, that was the clip from Bulworth. Bulworth said everybody just got to keep having sex with everybody. He used a different word until we're all the same color. Because eventually, I think that's really what's going to happen. I think we are on the path to that. So let's talk about it. So I have some special guests with me today. The first couple is especially special to me because it is my son. I started to say my baby boy, but he might take exception to that. But my son, John, and my daughter-in-law, Liz, and I think one of my grandbabies might still be up. So let me bring them on. Hey, John, Liz.
Hi.
So that's Jonathan and Liz Chase. And there's little baby Eli. Hold him up because I can't see him because your name is blocking him. There he is. There's baby Eli. That's my youngest grandson.
Fighting sleep.
So John and Liz,
Hi.
share whatever you want to about yourselves to the listening audience.
I guess I can start with our relationship history. That might be a good place to start. We've been married since 2020, right? 2020, but we've been dating since the spring of 2011. We actually met in law school, and we initially met in 2008. And we were in the same circle of friends, so we never actually considered dating each other until sometime in 2011 when I decided to make my move. and it worked. And the rest, as I say, is history. Obviously, we're both lawyers since we went to law school. And this is Elijah, and Emmy's upstairs sleeping. We have another daughter. She's 2.5 now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I guess since it's an episode about being multiracial, obviously I'm Black. Liz is half Caucasian and half Moroccan. Her dad is Moroccan. He immigrated, I don't know when, 60 years ago, 50 years ago, something like that.
In 74. Yep.
Okay. All right. Liz, would you like to share anything?
I think he covered it most. I mean, yeah, this is our youngest Elijah. He should be sleeping, but he's fighting sleep. He wanted to see his grandma. And yeah, I mean, I feel like we weren't always certain whether we were going to have a family, but we're blessed to have 2 little kids now. And, it's been an honor and a privilege to raise them. And, I think we'll have a lot more things to come, like as far as them being biracial once they get a little bit older.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right. So next I'm going to bring on David and Sarita. David and Sarita Garbarini, thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Okay, well, let me introduce you to my daughter-in-law, Liz. She wasn't on when you came on earlier. So Liz, David and Sarita.
Nice to meet you. Sorry, I was trying to get this one down, and as you can see, he had other plans.
No worries. We completely understand that.
So David and Sarita, what would you like to share with the listeners, the viewers?
Okay. So I guess I start by saying we've been in a relationship for about 24 years. And I say we've been in a relationship because we've had various relationship statuses, dating, engaged, married, divorced, co-parenting. And now we've been remarried again for 1 year. We have 3 children. David Jr., he's 15. Denise, she's 13. And Draven, he's 11. I'm a social worker by trade. I work in government and I do a little side job in retail. You want to talk about what you do?
Yep, I'm a low voltage technician. I install cable wiring, security systems, stuff like that. I just started my own business, House of Coral, saltwater fish tank stuff, saltwater corals, 3D printing, different stuff like that.
Okay. Did you say it's House of Coral, Coral?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Nice. Very nice. So thank you all for taking the time out tonight to come on and join this broadcast. Those of you who are watching, I always forget to say to subscribe, like, and share. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. And that way you can be informed when there are upcoming episodes. So I want to ask you guys something. There were some anti-miscegenation laws that were in this country up until 1967, when there was a Supreme Court case, Loving versus Virginia. And in fact, there was a movie made about that couple. I think the movie's entire title is Loving. We are now 55 years removed from that decision, and intermarrying is no longer illegal, because prior to that it was illegal to intermarry. Even though a couple still did it, they risked being arrested and incarcerated. However, there are still some individuals who remain very much against marriage between races. So I'm wondering, did you experience any hesitancy in dating someone of a different race? If so, why? And if not, why not? And either of you can answer that.
I did not experience this, but Sarita did.
Oh, yeah. I think, I had hesitancy when he first asked me to date him, probably because when I was younger, I had like an influence in my life that, kind of talked about how, white people were unsafe, like they were not, people that you want to be around. They're not desirable. They're not looking out for your best needs. But on the flip side, I also had, positive relationships in my life with different white people. So, I think it took me like a week to decide to say yes to dating him, for that reason, just in that turmoil. But just thinking about how nice of a person he was, how he treated me, I decided that, race wasn't the important factor and that I would take a chance.
Okay. So I'm assuming dating David was your first time venturing outside of your race.
Yes.
Okay. Mhm. John and Liz.
I mean, I had no hesitancy. I mean, I kind of grow up from, I guess, a multi-racial background. You know, my father's from Morocco. He's brown for all intents and purposes. He's got a very thick accent. So it never was something that even gave me pause for thought. So I mean, I've dated other races, I've dated other ethnicities, and it was kind of just like for me to find the one. The one, and the love of your life, and it's have no barriers for that. So,
Okay, John.
I actually did, but not with Liz. We're talking about years ago when I was maybe 18, 19. And if the question is why, I think it was probably in part ignorance. And part of it was probably having influences by other people, especially in particular the media. Whenever you see like on sitcoms or something, black person brings home a white person. There's always like that moment where people are gasping or they're cracking snide jokes, things like that. So,
Yeah.
But I've long been over that, obviously. But I didn't have any hesitancy with Liz. Once her and I started dating, it wasn't a question. I'd gotten over that hump years before that, so it wasn't an issue.
Yeah.
But I think with a lot of black people in particular, it happens because I mean, honestly, I guess it's different for every person. But it's definitely very common in the black community where you might be nervous to bring a Caucasian or some particularly Caucasian home. I'll be honest with you. If it's Hispanic, black folks have no problem with people dating Hispanics. But in the black community, for some reason, part of it's probably historically based. We just have a hesitancy to bring home Caucasians. But like I said, I was over that a long time ago before I was raised.
Yeah, yeah. And I have to acknowledge that part of my son's hesitancy was because of me. Because I used to be very much against dating outside of our race. And I had to apologize to my son because that was negative. That was a very negative point of view. And I mean, obviously, he ain't pay me no mind anyway. And I'm glad he did not. I am so glad he did not. But I had to apologize to him many, many years ago because I was wrong. I was wrong, and I had to be accountable for that, and I had to accept responsibility for that. But I know that was part of his hesitancy was because I was born in 1956, and part of my years of growing up, I spent in the South, and I experienced a great deal of racism personally. But the wrong thing for me to do was to influence my children with that. I should never have done that. But thank God I've outgrown it. And as you can see, I have this wonderful, beautiful daughter-in-law, these amazing grandchildren. And quite honestly, John-O, I don't ever recall you dating a black girl. I think you have always dated outside of our race. I think I know you dated Hispanic girls, but I don't recall you ever dating a black girl, even in junior high or high school.
Well, I didn't date anybody in junior high school. I didn't know what I was doing in junior high school. I would say it depends on how you define dating. I definitely didn't ever bring anybody home that was not not my race. Or I never brought home somebody my race to see you, obviously. But it depends on how you define dating. And different generations define it differently. But there's no need to go into the details.
Yeah. Okay. So, how accepting were your family and friends of your relationship when you started dating outside of your race?
I mean, I think for us, it's a little bit more common where I guess we're at the millennials kind of. I mean, we're at the early end of millennials. So I think we're kind of the generation that is starting to be more of a melting pot. So I really, our friends never had pause for thought or anything to that effect. And my family was very accepting of it. I mean, I don't think it even was a thought on their radar or anything to that effect. So, but again, it's part of like our generation has more, we're a little bit further removed from the loving case and a lot of that, stay within your own race type of thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think for our kids, it won't even be a blip on the radar. Probably. I think, you know, it's actually funny because one of our friends coined the term "tomorrow babies," that we were going to have tomorrow babies, and
Yes.
you know, that really is what they are. They're, you know, the children of, you know, this melting pot, and where you're not going to be able to tell what anyone is to, you know, some extent. So
Exactly. Exactly. I think you're absolutely right. Um, David and Sarita, how accepting were your family and friends when you guys started dating?
Yeah, I think when we initially, you know, had conversations about it, we thought there might be some folks, but turns out, lucky for us, all our immediate family is very accepting of our relationship, our immediate family and friends. We
Mm-hmm.
don't have any trouble in that regard. I mean, we had pretty mixed high school, but we do know that there are folks, you know, who will say things like, you know, we're diluting our bloodlines and things like
Mm,
that we're in our early 40s, and so we know there's some of that, you know, still in people's thoughts, but immediate family and friends, no problems at all.
okay. And before you had children, were there any conversations, any discussion about race at all?
Not for us. We didn't, but maybe, you know, mistakenly we didn't have that conversation. We didn't
Mhm.
really think about it. I think maybe we talked about what we thought our children might look like, think that they might be beautiful, but we didn't really talk about, you know, maybe some of the cultural differences or how we would raise them
Mhm.
in an intentional way.
Okay.
and I
John,
think that's
Liz?
similar for us. We didn't really talk about that either. I think we just kind of knew they would be biracial. That, you know,
Mhm.
Mhm.
obviously we knew. And I, you know, I think the same thing. Maybe we didn't, you know, talk about how culturally we would raise them or anything to that effect. But we just knew that, you know, they would be biracial, and that hopefully they would be beautiful
Yeah.
and, you know, the kids, and that was it.
Mhm. Mhm. So I'm wondering if you have faced any particular challenges in raising biracial children, and if so, what might they have been?
We haven't experienced any, and it could be because they're so young. Um,
Mhm.
but thus far, like no issues with family or friends, no issues with ignorant people saying or doing anything. Hopefully that continues, but you know, we live in this world. Someone's going to say something stupid. That's just the way life works.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we
Yeah.
have not encountered or deal with any of those issues yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one time, Liz, when you were looking for a daycare for Amy Girl, and and I was so impressed with you when you said you were there was one daycare in particular that you were looking at, but she would have been the only child of color there, so you chose somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess I always want them to be around people that are going to look like them, to some extent in any shape or form,
Hmm.
and just to have, you know, diversity of all kind. And so that was something that was important for me. And I think too, you know, um, for our kids, we really haven't faced any diversity, but I think we do, you know, keep an eye out to that to kind of have them in areas or in, you know, classrooms that are more diverse. Right now we have the option, we're not in public school yet, they're not in kindergarten or anything to that effect,
Yeah.
so we can make those choices later on down the road. You know, we'll kind of you know, see what it is as far as that goes, but
Hmm.
uh, that was something that was definitely on my radar, that I wanted to make sure that she was always around, um, and he, you know, is around as well. So
Okay. All right. And David and Sarita, have you guys faced any specific challenges with raising biracial children?
Yes, we've had challenges, and I think you have, you know, we might talk about a little bit later some of our specific challenges. But I think
Mhm.
right now, as our children are older, right now it's really how to talk about this topic with them, like thinking about, you know, how to talk about important things. You know, in recent years, last 10 years, 11 years, social media has made, you know, certain things more sensational, you know, in
Mhm.
terms of, you know, killing of, you know, African Americans and things like that. So
Mhm.
I think, you know, you were talking about as the generations are younger and younger, their experience is not going to be the same as ours. So we really tread lightly as to not to try to unduly influence them, saying they're experiencing something they may not be experiencing. And so that's kind of the conversation that we're always kind of, when do we talk about some of these worldly issues, not even around race, around a lot of things. And so, just treading lightly, having conversations, when's the appropriate time. I think as parents now, that's kind of what we're facing.
Okay. And anyone who's watching, if you have a question, just put it in the chat, and we'll ask our guests to chime in answering that particular question. So how, if at all, are the different cultures being incorporated into the lives of the children? How are you going about doing that?
Something that I do often, and I just expose them to stuff that I like. And I think without even trying, you're going to be exposed to Black culture or whatever you want to call it. Like, so with Emmy, for example, like whenever she woke up in the middle of the night, as I rocked her back to sleep, I always watched The Cosby Show. And say what you want about Bill Cosby, The Cosby Show itself is a staple in the Black community and our culture. So that honestly helps. I watch Martin with her all the time. Personally, I love Martin. I don't know. I assume most Black people do, but I'll play music for them. Might have curse words in it, but I know I personally like it, so it gave me certain aspects of culture. So I'll play that for them and just let it play in the background and dance with them. And I think you don't even have to. I don't think you have to try to incorporate your culture. Excuse me. I think you just need to be yourself, and certain aspects of your culture will permeate through no matter what you do, because it's some of it is just nature. So I don't do anything deliberately. I'll just be myself and do things that I enjoy personally.
Okay, that's a good point. That's a great point. I know one thing I did a few months back. You guys know I have a whole bunch of toys here for the children and dolls and everything. And one day I looked and I realized all the dolls were Black. I didn't have any white dolls or dolls that may look like they were of mixed race. And I went out and I got 2 white dolls. My next thing is going to get some dolls that look like they will appear multi-ethnic, because I want my grandchildren to see all of who they are, not just limit them to having only Black dolls. And I think, I know I kind of geared towards that, because when I was growing up, I mean, it was hard to come by even a Black doll. It was a big thing when Black dolls became so readily available. But I also realized that I should not limit my grandchildren to just Black dolls. So yeah, I get what you're saying, John. That's a great point. So David and Sarita, what about you guys about incorporating the various cultures?
Yeah, I think, nothing we've done intentionally. Same with you, looking for toys, books, and things that are reflective of what they are. I think they were younger in our community. We would have, Italian American festivals, Black African American festivals. We would take them to events like that. But that's just us being us, doing the things that we love to do, right? So no real intentionality around there. I think probably now, what would you say?
Just a lot of the times cooking different foods and stuff like that. Like my Italian heritage is big. My kids seemed to really get excited when they found out that they were Italian. Pasta and pizza and stuff like that is like a giant staple in the house now. And they're always, like my 15-year-old didn't know that he was Italian. Like he just found this out 2 years ago or so, because we don't really talked about it, I guess, or whatnot. So Italian, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we also we'd like to do like travel. I think we talk about going to Italy, we talk about going to Africa, just exposing to cultures. I mean, because that's the best way to learn about any culture, is to be exposed to it. So I think just giving that, but that's for anything. We want them to see all cultures, not just the ones we share. Things like that.
Right.
So, yeah.
So David, do you speak Italian by chance?
No, I don't speak Italian, unfortunately. No, I missed out on that part. My dad and my aunt and everybody does, but not me.
Yeah. I actually used to envy people who were in touch with their culture and had an opportunity to be able to be bilingual.
Oh yeah,
But
definitely. Yeah.
it's as if when people from other countries would come, they would be so intentional about assimilating into the American culture. They would distance themselves from speaking their own native language, and then by the second or third generation, the language is kind of lost.
Yeah.
Yep,
Mhm.
exactly.
I know a lot of Hispanic people like that. They don't speak Spanish.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like my dad's Moroccan, he speaks Arabic, but because he married an American, there wasn't as much opportunity to speak Arabic at home. And I,
Mm.
when I was younger, spoke it a little bit, but it was, I think for him, he wanted me to assimilate and be able to speak English, better than he ever could.
Yeah.
So it was really important for him, for me to learn English in that sense and not so much Arabic. So the focus
Yeah.
was on English. And I wish I had, learned more of Arabic or even French. And that's definitely something I would at least like them to learn, maybe French or another language. Because I do think, it just gives them another perspective and, triggers a different aspect of the brain and, helps later on
Mm.
in life too.
Yeah. Yeah. My sister Jackie had a question. She said, with the racial tension in the world today, how, if at all, has it affected your family?
Certainly. I think it's having less and less of an impact now than when it first, when social media first began to like highlight things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I remember there were some years where it was really difficult to kind of sit in a room and like let's have a conversation about this. What are we going to tell our kids? Do we, in a world where when you have any ounce of black blood in you, you're considered black. Do we tell our boys you are black and you need to protect yourself in certain ways when you say are out driving a vehicle or something like that? So we did, have conversations about things like that. And when things happen, there is a light tension, but love is love, and our family there is love. And so we don't let it necessarily get us down. There's just moments of pause, I guess is the best way to say it. But for the most part, we, operate in a loving environment and talk about the good things in the world. So
Yeah. Okay, good. Good. And I know John and Liz, your kids are so young. Um, you're not having yet to have those types of conversations with them.
No,
No,
no.
yeah.
You talk about cocoa melon. That's about it.
right? We hope they don't have to, right?
Yes, we
Yeah.
hope they don't have to, but in reality, we probably will. And we are raising a biracial black son, and I think it's something that a road we will have to cross, and for both our son and our daughter, let them know the cruelties of the world and that it's a real thing and that they need to be aware of it, and not everyone's bad, but there are some bad people out there, and you have to kind of protect yourself and act accordingly in certain situations, unfortunately, just to be safe, and make it home. So.
Well, I'll tell you what.
I'm sorry.
I don't. Oh, I don't bring up situations, like with the shootings and stuff that happened lately too. Like our kids aren't old enough to be on social media, so it's not like I come home from work and give out all the information of the day. So they're kind of in the blind, I guess you'd say, for certain situations, and I purposely keep it that way, for now anyway. And so when they come across something, then kind of cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah, I understand that. You want to protect your children from the ills of the world for as long as you possibly can.
Yeah.
For as long as you possibly can, because at some point when you have to make them aware of all the evil and cruelty in the world. But it's almost like a loss of innocence, so to speak. Their blinders are off and they can see what this world is really like. So yeah, you want to avoid that as long as you possibly can. I get that. I absolutely get that. I read an article recently, and in it, some parents and grandparents of multi-ethnic children said that they had police called on them because it was thought that the child or children who were with them appeared to be of a different race. And I'm wondering if either you or your not your grandma, your children's grandparents have ever run into that situation.
We have not. So there's, I mean,
Mhm.
I don't think it would happen anyway. Because with Emmy, she looks a lot like me, so I don't think anybody would mistake her for not being my daughter. Maybe with
Yeah.
Eli when he was younger, because he was a lot lighter, but
Mhm.
it hasn't happened. So not with grandparents, anybody else either. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I thought about that the other day. When I had the children out, because Eli is a lot lighter, and your dad said, "Yeah, Val, they're probably going to see you and Eli and think you the nanny." And I said,
yeah,
"I hope somebody has the audacity to walk up
right.
to me and say that, because listen, they're gonna get a mouthful if they try that."
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I haven't seen where that happened. So I'm wondering if you guys have ever experienced that, David and Sarita.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned nanny because we were down in New York City when my kids were younger, and I had a twin stroller with two kids in it, and then I had the youngest connected in front of me. So I had all three kids down in New York City and Manhattan
Yeah.
for a week, and so many people thought I was the nanny of some rich person in Manhattan that they weren't my kids. I'm like, oh, who do you work for? That was my thing that happened, was the whole nanny situation. That no
Wow.
one's like, oh, these are my kids. My wife is here for business, and we're out for a walk. We're out for our 10 o'clock walk before nap time. But yeah, everyone thought I was their nanny. Yeah.
Wow.
And probably not related to the biggest challenge I think we had, not related to them not looking like us, but more in terms of our parenting. We had a neighbor who would constantly call Child Protective Services on us
Wow.
for various reasons, just because I guess she had her own perception of how we should be raising our children. We had to deal with that quite a bit. So that was a big challenge for us when we were raising the children.
Wow. That's unfortunate. That's
Yes.
so unfortunate. Sometimes people just need to mind their business.
Mhm.
And even if they think that they are well-meaning, I mean, if a child's not being harmed and they appear to be well cared for, mind your business.
Yeah.
Leave the people alone, and don't make assumptions just because the child looks different than the parent or the grandparent.
Yeah.
And it's
Absolutely.
unfortunate. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
unfortunate. So you know what? In our country, when people are asked to identify their race on documents, they have limited choices. They have Caucasian, and then they have Black or African non-Hispanic, Asian Pacific Islander, Hispanic, and Native American, or other. What are your thoughts on the ways in which your children identify? And how would you feel if your child identifies as a race different from yours?
Can I go?
Well,
No, you can go. I'm sorry.
so we primarily encourage our children to, like, if the answers are limited to just those choices, we encourage them to select other and indicate that they're American. Because I think we have the power to change those categories the more we press for the things that we want to see. We know it's important. I mean, we are all the human race, right? But in terms of health and those cases, I think it's important to collect race. But in most cases, on most of these forms where we're collecting demographics, we don't need that information. And so if you're doing a census or something, you're American. And that's, kind of how we are raising them to indicate. I think in terms of if my child was, identity, like many things are on a spectrum, right? So whatever race my children are identifying as at the time is okay with me. What you're just saying that you relate more to some of these stereotypical things that someone who looks differently does. Fine, that's no problem to me. So I think even for yourself saying, oh, I'm completely Black, there's things when people say, oh, well, you present as white, or you look white, or you act white. Well, what does that even really mean? So, so wherever they are, however they feel comfortable, as long as they're feeling comfortable and their identity. I think that's what's important to us.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah. I think my I don't know if concern would be the right word, but my concern for my grandbabies would be how they might be received by the various races, because sometimes, people can be cruel, especially when kids are growing up. They may feel like, okay, they're not Black enough to fit over here with the Black kids, but they're too Black to fit over here with the white kids. So where are they going to fit in? Or will there be enough multiracial, multi-ethnic, biracial children in the school environment in order to feel comfortable? That's my concern. How are they going to fit in? Who and what circle are they going to be welcomed and appreciated? So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that, but John and Liz, you can answer the question I asked before. I'm sorry, I chimed in too soon.
Yeah. So, in terms as to what they identify as, I don't really care, because you are what you are. It doesn't matter what. For me, you can identify as whatever race you want to, but you are what you are. My kids, they're multiracial, so you can call yourself Black, you can call yourself white, but you're mixed. There's no way around that. But the point about in school, you don't necessarily have to only associate with a particular race. Me growing up, I had friends of all different types of race: Black, white, Hispanic, all of it. So hopefully, they're in an environment where it's not voluntarily segregated upon racial lines, because that creates a lot more problems than it solves anyway. So there's obviously going to be certain circles of people where they're all Black or all white or whatever, but you don't have to force yourself into one of those circles. Find yourself people that care about you regardless of your race, and people that you're cool with and that you can identify with regardless of your race, as long as you can all get along. That's what the important part is.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think that's so different from what my experience was when I was in high school. Because I remember when we moved from New York, I grew up in Brooklyn, and we moved from Brooklyn, New York, down to this one-horse town in North Carolina. 1971, the school had just been integrated the year prior. So it was a very tumultuous environment, and the school was very much separated along racial lines. And it was like a culture shock to me after having grown up in Brooklyn. And it was rough. It was rough. And I'm glad that hopefully schools won't be like that for the grandbabies. That they won't be forced to be with one group or the other, that they could mix with a whole host of people, regardless of race, regardless of their ethnicity, whatever. But I know sometimes in schools, you have those pockets, you have those cliques, you have those small groups where people who don't fit in for whatever reason, and it may not be race, it could be something else, are rejected. And that's my only concern. I don't want them to experience that rejection from anywhere, whatever the group is, whether it's because of race, because of ethnicity, because of gender, because of sexual orientation, anything. I don't want my grandbabies to experience any rejection. I mean, I know they have to at some point, but as a grandmother, I don't want my grandbabies to ever have to experience that. It's kind of idealistic to say I want them to be totally surrounded and encompassed by a loving, accepting, and nurturing environment. I know that can't always be, but a grandma could hope.
You know what, Mom? I realize that you're going to experience that no matter what. People are going to reject you. But my hope is that my kids are strong enough and confident enough to not care. Like, why do you want to be with somebody who's rejecting you? Then reciprocate. Don't try to associate with them. Find you some people that actually care about you. Or you don't have to have a bunch of friends. You can have one or two friends, actual real good friends, and be fine. You don't need to have everybody in the school like you or have a whole clique. Screw those people. Forget about it. And then if you carry yourself along those lines, those same people that rejected you will start to gravitate toward you. They'll respect you because of that. They'll wonder, why is this guy why does he not want to hang out with us? He must know something I don't know. He must be cool.
Mm.
Let's still try to be like him. And then you could turn around and say, well, you had your shot. I'm going to reject you now. It gives you so much more power if you could stand in the face of rejection and say, I don't care about that. I'm still going to do what I'm going to do.
Yeah, yeah. And you know something, that's something I've always admired about you, son, is that you have a set of very, very loyal friends who are from all different types of races, all ethnicities. And I have always admired that about you. And because your friends, you love them and they love you, and you guys are always there for one another.
Yeah. And I never really tried. I never said to myself, I want to have a diverse set of friends. I think I just carried myself that way, sometimes probably unintentionally. And that this is the result of it. Now, I don't want to like pat myself on the back. It could just be luck. I don't know exactly what it is, to be honest with you.
Well, I wouldn't say it's necessarily luck. I do think that it's the way in which you carried yourself. And you know, you were very open, even in spite of your mom having a very closed mind during your formative years. So yeah, I've always admired that about you.
Thank you.
So what advice would you give to other parents who are raising biracial or multi-ethnic children? What advice would you give them?
I think that's a hard one. I mean, especially for us, since our children are so young and we're like new parents, really. But I think for me, it's just trying to diversify them as much as possible, like whether it's activities so that they don't have, you know, those moments when they feel like they have to fit in. They're in so many activities with so many different groups that they realize that they can, you know, be in so many different circles and kind of bounce around. And that if, you know, they're not getting along with one group, okay, well then, you know, there's another group, just so that they realize that they have all of these other, you know, avenues. So, you know, for me, it's just keeping an eye to that, keeping them diversified, allowing them to have, you know, play groups and being open-minded myself, you know, so that they're open-minded too. And I think just, I don't even know. I think just coming from good families, allowing them to, you know, nurture and realizing that it takes a village and allowing the village to, you know, kind of really form those children and that it's not just us raising them. It really is the whole circle. So that they do get all of those different cultural aspects and those different viewpoints, and that they can understand that and that all of that makes them. So.
Okay. Sarita, David?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would agree with what you say. My biggest tip would be find your community, find your support system as a parent. Those who love you and love your family, that's going to probably go the longest. And there's that parallel process in which you're just also teaching your children to do the same. Find the people that support them, find their community, and things like that. I mean, in the end, we're talking about love is love. And what did you say? When we first reviewed this question, you're like, everybody have.
Yeah, there's always going to be somebody. You know, there's always, you know, that person that will just say something or just do something. So
and not be happy with you as what you're doing and what you're doing in your own life. So, you know, find those people who are supportive, you know, and push those naysayers to the side. So, yeah. And be open to, I think, you know, communicating with your kids, open to hearing what they're struggling with, if they are struggling, and things like that will be important as parents.
Yeah.
My bit of advice would be is before you're a parent of a multiracial child, you're a parent first. So focus on that. And I think at the core, all parents, for the most part, want the same thing for their kids. They want them to be happy, healthy, financially successful, smart, whatever. And that doesn't matter. That doesn't change what your race is. So at some point, you got to stop making it about race. And the only way to do that is to stop making it about race, right? And just focus on loving your kids, doing your best for them, and teaching them the best that you can. It might not be the best, period, but the best that you can. And all the other stuff we're concerned about will hopefully take care of itself as the kids get older.
That's good. Well, everything that you guys have shared has been really, really good. So I'm wondering if you have any final words to offer.
I don't know. Isn't Loving Day coming up? It's in June. So happy Loving Day, everybody.
I know.
It's June 14th or something. So, yeah.
I see Frank's comment. I want to make sure. He knows, my brother made a comment. So I want to make sure he knows I see it.
Okay.
I mean, I don't have any final bits to add other than what I've said. Just just do your best as a parent, as a family, and all the other problems will be sorted out. You're going to have problems no matter what, whether it's racial or otherwise. There's no way to avoid having problems or conflict. And in some ways, those problems and conflict are good because you can grow from them. So don't try to avoid it. Face it head on, whatever it may be, race or otherwise. But above all, just focus on taking care of your kids and loving your family because we're all in this together anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I think.
I mean, I would echo. Oh, sorry. I would echo that. I would, and just embrace your difference. Like I know, I grew up. Like I said, my father's from Morocco, looking a little bit different, and people always trying to put their finger on exactly what my, ethnicity was or what I was, and some people might take offense to that, but I was always open-minded and wanted to educate them about my differences and tell them who I was and allow them to know, hey, different is great, it's beautiful, but no matter what your difference is. So just keeping that in the forefront and letting them know, just because you're different, there's nothing wrong with that respect, whether it's your sexuality or disability or anything like that. So and some people might be curious about it, and that's okay. And you can educate them about that curiosity. You don't have to, but if you want to, and but it's a beautiful thing regardless. So embrace it in that respect, and live life knowing who you are and being strong in who you are.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, David and Sarita, if your children have ever run into that with people trying to figure out what they are in terms of race, or even asking them.
Yeah. Denise's first day of school in kindergarten, someone asked her who she was, and she came home and said, "Mommy, what am I?" I said, what do you mean? What are you? Where did you hear that? Well, so-and-so asked me, what am I? I'm like, oh, okay. But I like what you say about curiosity, because at first I did take offense to that. I was like, I had just moved to the community and I was like, what have I gotten myself into? But I think it's important to take a step back and think about, and in a lot of cases, people are just being curious. They want to know a little bit more about you and things like that, and to not take offense to that. I think what you say about being open. So that was a learning point for me. But yes, people do ask. And I think I asked Denise recently, just in talking about, what we're going to be doing here tonight. And she said she would say, what do you mean? What am I? I'm a human, so she's growing in her response to those questions as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great response. Yeah, I'm human. You don't have to figure out what I am or what race I am. Because listen, in some regard, we are all mutts. I don't think there are any of us anymore who are pure anything. We all got a little of this, we got a little of that. And I think people are surprised sometimes when they do that that DNA thing.
Yeah.
And they see we are mutts. We are all mutts. I mean, mutts might not be a good term, but you guys get what I'm saying, right?
Multi-ethnic.
We're all very mixed.
Yeah, we are all mixed up in so many ways, and I think once we realize that, it could cut down on so much. Dr. Maya Angelou said it best, that we are more alike than we are unalike, and she is absolutely right. So if we focus more on the things we have in common as opposed to our differences, we would realize that our commonality far outweighs whatever our so-called differences are.
Absolutely.
So thank you guys. I want to tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time to come and share a little bit. Again, those who are watching, make sure that you subscribe, that you like
Like,
and share. Always
Subscribe, like, and share, and comment. Make some comments
Yeah,
on too.
anyone who's watching, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and make sure you share. And I just want to shout out David's business is House of Coral. And where are you
Yes.
located, David?
In Ewing, 33 Pershing Ave in Ewing. It's a
Okay.
privately owned business. The website is newjerseyhouseofcoral.com, and we're on Instagram and Facebook. Thank you.
Instagram and Facebook, look for House of Coral. That's David's business. So make sure that you patronize him. Website, say the website again, David.
And njhouseofcoral.com.
njhouseofcoral.com in Ewing, New Jersey. And the Instagram is House of Coral also?
NJ House of Coral, yes. Yep.
NJ House of Coral on Instagram. What about Facebook? Are you on Facebook?
Yes, and yes, NJ House of Coral. Yeah.
NJ House of Coral, Facebook, Instagram, and website. Patronize the brother. Give him some love out there. So thank you guys again so much. I appreciate you. And John, I'll be seeing you. And Serena, hopefully I'll be seeing you. Because, you know, we were at Kingdom together. Well, it's changed now.
Mhm. Yeah. I'll be seeing you.
I'll be seeing you, my sister.
Sure.
Okay, thanks
Thank you
again,
for
guys.
having us.
Have a great night.
Have a good night.
Thank you
Thanks
for having us. Love you.
Love you. Bye-bye.